Why does anything exist? Close your eyes for a moment. Feel the weight of your body, the rhythm of your breath, the sensation of existence itself coursing through you. Now ask yourself the most terrifying question humans have ever conceived. Why is there something rather than nothing? Not why does this thing exist or that thing exist, but why does anything exist at all? This is not philosophy. This is not religion. This is the edge of comprehension itself, the place where thought meets its own extinction. Today we journey into the void that should have been everything. We will explore why nothingness failed, why existence won, and why the answer might be more disturbing than you can imagine. The ground beneath your feet is trembling. We begin. In 1714, the German philosopher Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz wrote something that would haunt humanity forever. He called it the most fundamental question that could ever be asked. Why is there something rather than nothing? Think about what this means. Truly think about it. Nothing would have been so much simpler. No universe, no stars, no earth, no atoms, no space, no time, no physical laws, no mathematics, no consciousness, no you, pure, absolute, total nothingness. And yet here we are, reading these words, breathing air, existing in a universe so complex, so vast, so impossibly intricate that it contains billions of galaxies, each with billions of stars, many with planets, and on at least one of those planets, conscious beings who can ask why any of this exists at all. The 19th century American philosopher William James stared into this question and called it the darkest in all philosophy. He understood something profound. There is no logical bridge from nothing to being, no pathway, no transition, just an impossible leap. Imagine true nothingness. Not space, because space is something. Not darkness, because darkness requires the absence of light, and both light and darkness are something. Not silence, because silence requires the absence of sound, and sound is something. True nothingness is the absence of absence itself. It is so alien to our minds that we cannot even picture it. Every time you try, you imagine something, a void, a darkness, an emptiness. But these are all something. Nothing is not a thing. It cannot be experienced, observed, or known, and yet somehow we escaped it. How? The question strikes at the core of reality itself. It is the ultimate mystery, hiding in plain sight, beneath every breath you take, every thought you think, every moment you experience. And we have always suspected the answer would change everything. In 1927, the German philosopher Martin Heidegger called this the fundamental question of metaphysics. He understood that this was not just another philosophical puzzle to be solved. This was the question that defined what it means to be human, to stand in the light of existence and stare back at the darkness of non-being. Heidegger believed we feel this question in our bones during moments of profound anxiety, not fear of something specific, but the raw terror of existence itself, the vertigo of realizing that you are when you so easily might not have been. This is the dizziness at the edge of the void. But here's where it gets strange. Here's where the mystery deepens beyond anything our ancestors could have imagined. Because modern physics has discovered something that should be impossible. Nothing is unstable. In the quantum realm, the strange alien world of subatomic particles, physicists have discovered that true emptiness cannot exist. Take a perfect vacuum, remove every atom, every particle, every trace of matter and energy, and what remains is not nothing. It is quantum foam. Space itself seethes with activity. Virtual particles spontaneously burst into existence from pure nothingness, exist for impossibly brief moments, then vanish back into the void. This happens constantly, everywhere, at scales so small we cannot observe it directly, but we can measure its effects. The Casimir effect proves this. Place two metal plates close together in a vacuum, and they will be pushed together by the pressure of virtual particles appearing and disappearing in the space around them. Nothingness has force, the void has weight. Nobel laureate Frank Wilczek captured this impossibility in a single phrase. Nothing is unstable. If you create perfect emptiness, it will spontaneously generate something. The quantum vacuum is not nothing. It is something desperately trying not to be nothing. But here's the paradox that breaks everything. The quantum vacuum is not truly nothing. It still requires space, time, quantum fields, physical laws, and mathematical structures to operate. It is already something. A very specific something with very specific rules. So the quantum vacuum cannot explain why there is something rather than nothing. It can only explain why this is something rather than that something. The fundamental question remains unanswered. We have only pushed it back one level. Some physicists argue that the universe spontaneously emerged from a quantum fluctuation, a random bubble of space-time that inflated into everything we see. Physicist Lawrence Krauss wrote an entire book claiming the universe came from nothing. But philosopher David Albert demolished this argument in a single devastating review. He pointed out that Krauss's nothing was actually a quantum vacuum governed by the laws of physics. That's not nothing. That's a very elaborate something pretending to be nothing. If the laws of physics already exist, then something already exists. And we're back to the original question. Why do those laws exist? Why does the quantum vacuum exist? Why does anything exist? The physicist Sean Carroll admitted defeat. He wrote, "Any attempt to account for the existence of something rather than nothing must ultimately bottom out in a set of brute facts. The universe simply is, without ultimate cause or explanation. This is called the brute fact position. The universe just exists. Period. No explanation, no reason. It simply is. And that's all." The philosopher Bertrand Russell took this position in a famous 1948 radio debate. When asked why the universe exists, he replied, "I should say that the universe is just there, and that's all." But this answer, though it might be true, is intellectually devastating. It means the deepest question we can ask has no answer. The foundation of reality is randomness, meaninglessness, a cosmic accident with no explanation. It means we are existential orphans in a universe that has no idea why it exists. But wait, what if we're asking the wrong question? The 17th century Dutch philosopher Baruch Spinoza proposed something radical. He argued that existence is not an accident, it is necessary. The universe must exist because its non-existence is impossible. Einstein, who called himself a follower of Spinoza, seems to have held a similar view. He once asked, "Did God have a choice in creating the universe?" He wondered whether the laws of physics could have been different, or whether they necessarily had to be exactly as they are. If the universe necessarily exists, if it could not have failed to exist, then there is no mystery. Asking why does anything exist? It's like asking why are circles round? They just are. It's in their nature. But this creates a new problem. If the universe necessarily exists, then everything that happens necessarily happens. Free will becomes an illusion. Choice becomes meaningless. Your life unfolds according to an iron logic that could never have been different. You could not have avoided reading these words. You could not have made different choices. You could not have been anyone other than who you are. Necessity eliminates contingency. It eliminates freedom. It eliminates meaning. So we face a dilemma. Either existence is a brute fact with no explanation, or it is necessary and strips everything of freedom. Neither answer satisfies. Neither answer feels true. Unless there is a third option. In the 13th century, the philosopher Thomas Aquinas proposed what is called the cosmological argument. He argued that contingent things that might not have existed, require an explanation outside themselves. You exist because your parents existed. They existed because of their parents. And so on. But this chain of explanations cannot go backwards forever. Eventually you must arrive at something that exists not because of something else, but because of its own nature. Something that must exist. Aquinas called this God, the necessary being, whose existence requires no explanation because existence is part of its essence. Leibniz developed this into the principle of sufficient reason. He argued that everything must have a sufficient reason for its existence, either in something else or in its own nature. Other contingent things explain contingent things. But the chain of contingent things must ultimately be grounded in a necessary being that explains itself. This necessary being would be the answer to our question. It would be the reason there is something rather than nothing. But here's the problem. If God is necessary, then God could not have chosen not to create the universe. The universe would also be required. We are back to determinism. Everything necessarily exists, and nothing could have been different. And if God is not necessary, then God is contingent, and we can ask, why does God exist rather than nothing? The explanation collapses. Every path leads to contradiction. Every answer generates a new question. Every solution creates a deeper mystery. It's as if reality itself is designed to prevent us from understanding why it exists. Some philosophers have suggested that this is not a coincidence. The question, why does anything exist, might be fundamentally unanswerable, not because we lack intelligence, but because the question itself contains an impossible demand. The question asks, explain the existence of everything without assuming the existence of anything. This is like asking, lift yourself off the ground by pulling on your own hair. It's logically impossible. Logician Roy Sorensen calls this an impossible explanatory demand. No explanation can satisfy it because every explanation must start with something that already exists. The philosopher Ludwig Wittgenstein agreed. He wrote, "It is not how things are in the world that is mystical, but that it exists." Wittgenstein believed the question, why is there something rather than nothing, is not a genuine question at all. It is an expression of awe, a brute encounter with the mystery of being that cannot be put into words or explained by logic. The question is not meant to be answered, it is meant to be felt. But this creates a new problem, more disturbing than all the others. If the question cannot be answered, then existence itself is absurd. We live in a universe that has no reason for existing, cannot explain why it exists, and may be fundamentally inexplicable. We are conscious beings trapped inside an incomprehensible cosmic accident, forever asking a question that has no answer. Is this the truth? Is existence truly meaningless? A random fluctuation in an eternal void, signifying nothing? Or is there something we're missing? Some hidden dimension of reality we haven't discovered? Some answer that lies beyond the reach of human thought? Consider this. The question, why does anything exist, assumes that nothingness is the default state. It assumes that existence is unusual, surprising, something that requires explanation. But what if we have this backwards? What if existence is the default state and nothingness is impossible? The physicist Max Tegmark has proposed something called the mathematical universe hypothesis. He argues that mathematical structures necessarily exist because mathematical truths are eternal and unchanging. 2 + 2 = 4 in every possible universe, at every point in time, whether anyone is around to calculate it or not. If mathematical structures necessarily exist, then perhaps physical universes are just mathematical structures being instantiated. Reality is mathematics made manifest. Under this view, the question, why does anything exist, becomes meaningless. Mathematical truths exist necessarily. Physical reality is a mathematical structure. Therefore, reality necessarily exists. Nothingness was never an option. Existence was inevitable. But this pushes the mystery into mathematics itself. Why do mathematical truths exist? Why does logic exist? Why does the number 2 exist? Platonists argue that mathematical objects exist in a realm outside space and time, eternal, unchanging, perfect. But where is this realm? What is it made of? How do abstract objects exist if they have no physical presence? We are back where we started, staring into the void, asking impossible questions. Perhaps the answer is that there is no answer. Perhaps existence is the ultimate brute fact, something that simply is, without reason, without cause, without explanation. Or perhaps the answer is hidden in plain sight, encoded in the structure of reality itself, waiting for minds capable of comprehending it to evolve. Or perhaps, and this is the most disturbing possibility, the answer exists, but we will never find it. Not because we lack intelligence, but because conscious beings embedded inside reality cannot step outside reality to see why reality exists. We are like characters in a book trying to understand why the book was written. No amount of reading will reveal the author's intention. We are trapped inside the story. But here's what we know for certain. You exist. Right now. At this moment. Against impossible odds. Against the infinite simplicity of nothingness. Against every reasonable expectation. You are here. Conscious. Aware. Capable of asking why. And that is either the most meaningless accident in the history of everything, or the most profound miracle the universe has ever achieved. The philosopher Robert Nozick wrote, "Why is there something rather than nothing?" is the question that makes philosophers wake up in the middle of the night, sweating. Because once you truly understand the question, once you feel its full weight, it becomes impossible to take existence for granted ever again. Every moment becomes extraordinary. Every breath becomes impossible. Every thought becomes a mystery. You realize you are standing on the edge of an abyss. Behind you is everything, the universe, consciousness, meaning. Before you is nothing, the void that should have been everything. And the only thing preventing you from falling into that void is the incomprehensible fact that existence won, that something triumphed over nothing, that you are here instead of not here. Why? We may never know, but perhaps not knowing is part of the answer. Perhaps the mystery itself is what makes existence meaningful. After all, if we knew why everything exists, if we understood the final answer, what would be left to wonder about? Maybe the question, why does anything exist, is not meant to be answered. Maybe it is meant to awaken us to the radical strangeness of reality, to shake us out of our complacency, to remind us that existence is not normal, not expected, not guaranteed. It is a gift, an impossibility, a miracle, and we are witnesses to it. So the next time you take a breath, remember, you are participating in the greatest mystery the universe has ever known. The mystery of why there is something rather than nothing. The mystery of why you exist. The answer may be unknowable, but the question is everything. It is the question that defines us as humans, the question that separates us from the unconscious matter that surrounds us, the question that proves we are not just passive observers of reality, but active participants in the grand cosmic drama of existence itself. So ask it, feel it, let it transform you. Why does anything exist? The answer is waiting, not in philosophy or physics or theology, but in the space between heartbeats, in the silence between thoughts, in the gap between being and non-being. There, at the edge of everything and nothing, you will find what you are looking for. Or perhaps what you are looking for will find you. Because the question is not just about existence, the question is existence. And you, conscious, aware, asking, you are the universe awakening to its own impossible mystery. Welcome to the edge of thought. Welcome to the fundamental question. Welcome home.